Hey there, Chad here. Thanks for joining me. This is my complete beginner's guide to Aurora 4X. In the last episode, we finally completed building a couple of ships and we got them moved to work. We set up their move orders. They've been jumping around, researching things like crazy. And what I wanted to look at real quick is what their current move orders are. So let's look at Task Force 1. And it has 5 odd items it's looking for. And the other one is going to one of the moons of something. I don't know what that would be. Probably Neptune, or we can probably jump out here and see. Well, it's not going to be Neptune yet. Nonetheless, it's going to be some moons around something. Could be around Jupiter. And that would be in this area. And we'll see. We haven't done any of them yet. We'll see where he ends up going, but he will be doing some of those. Now, we have these survey locations. That's not what this is, though, is it? No, this is series. This is where one of them has been working. The other one is working here. Maybe he is doing other things. I guess we could watch him for a day, right? Let's turn that off and watch for a day. There he goes. Yeah, he's making a beeline in the direction of Jupiter, it looks like. So maybe not. We'll watch him a couple more days just for fun. Nope, that is what he's doing. Okay. So he's going to hit there it is. He's going to hit that Jovian moon, and he's going to take a hard look at that. There is a setting over here where you can see how many points are necessary. That one only takes 1. Callisto takes 241 points, though. It has to do with size, so that's something to pay attention to. And this is why I chose to do two sensors to kind of just help speed that process up a little bit. I'm going to turn those off. We can turn off surveyed bodies that, I'm sorry, that's what shows what has been surveyed. You can turn off things that don't have minerals. We're not going to do that for now. We're going to leave everything just like this so we can see as that improves. But what we want to look at right now is exactly that. We are going to take a look at, so what have all these survey results given us so far? No, we don't have to click on each individual one. What we're going to do is go to this window here, and that is the Open Mineral Survey window. And there we go. Now, when you first come to this window, it is blank. You have to press a button to get it to refresh. What we're going to press is Wide View. It just spreads things out, gives us a couple of extra columns, but there we go. And it will auto-populate at that point. Every time you open the window, it does reset its filters, so that's good. But we're going to probably primarily talk about this one today because it has a lot of information here. So we have Earth as a colony, and if we had opened this before starting to survey anything, Earth would show up and it would have been the only thing to show up. Now, the things that are showing up now is anything that has minerals, okay? And we have another view we can look at, and we'll do that here in just a few minutes. But anything that has minerals will show up here that is in the restriction of the filters that are set. And right now, really, I don't have any. Hab color seems to show you the habitability of something. Mercury, pretty low. Earth, obviously, is perfect. Luna isn't so bad. Real quick, let's talk about colony cost. So Earth is your standard when you start with an Earthbound start. Your population can live on Earth with no modifications, and so it has a colony cost of 0. It costs us nothing to live on Earth from a game perspective anyway. Obviously, never mind. We'll worry about that another time. But there's no charge for building the things beyond their actual initial cost, things like that. The rest of these are basically kind of factors off of that. A couple of things that are really confusing at first. LG, what is that? It stands for low gravity. All of these places have low gravity. You'll notice Mercury does not. Mercury has a reasonable gravity. It's 0.38. So 0.38 is not considered low by the game. And that's what we want to know. Now, why is that in here? Well, when you build low gravity infrastructure, it costs 2 infrastructure points to fill 1 infrastructure. And that's kind of a weird thing, but basically it costs twice as much to build infrastructure when it's low gravity. the game used to have a separate type of infrastructure that had to be built. It no longer does that. It's just infrastructure now. It's the thing we see in here, right there. It's this guy. It used to also have LG infrastructure, and it would cost more. They decided it was just easier to, encapsulate that into a single thing and do the math behind the scenes. So what does this colony cost? Well, effectively, when something on Earth has a particular cost, the moon, Luna, is going to be a factor. One person explained it to me as it's how many times more difficult it is to build there. Well, if Earth is a 0, then 0 times 2, you can kind of see how that goes. But I would assume that it has to do with this is how much more something is going to cost. So this gives you a rough look at the feasibility of colonizing somewhere. Luna, pretty easy to colonize on. Honestly, Mercury, despite being really hot and things like that, not too difficult to colonize on. Luna always seems to be a 2. I think well, maybe that's not true. I was going to say other planets might vary a little bit. Venus always seems to be in the 24 to 25 range for me, though. I've never really tracked specifically, but that number looks really, really familiar. Mars is a little less than that. You cannot colonize gas giants. Makes sense. You can't build on them. But you can colonize their moons, and those will show up here too eventually. In fact, it's possible some of these are. I just don't know all the names of all the moons in our system. Okay, so what else do we see here? So this kind of helps you decide where might I colonize. Now, it is important to note that this is only showing places that have any of the Trans-Newtonian resources, which are really the only resources in the game to speak of other than wealth. Okay, and here those are. They each have a use. The ones that are really easy to understand and important early game, they're all somewhat important at some level. Duranium. Duranium is the material used to build ships. It's basic construction. Anything you build is probably going to use some duranium. Neutronium is for shipyards and things like armor and some of the kinetic weapons. Corbomite is used for shields and stealth kind of technologies. Won't be using that one much right now. Tritanium is for missiles and other ordnance. Not going to be using that one right now. Boronide is for power systems. Obviously, that is important. We're going to have a lot of power. I call this mercasium. I don't know if that's what it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to be said. And it is used by research facilities, also for things on ships like life support. Then this one, Vendorite, is for fighters. Literally, you'll build carriers, and the carriers will have fighters. This is what they tend to be built out of. So completely unnecessary for us right now. This one is highly important. Thorium is your key component in fuel. This is what your fuel is made of. So it is highly important. And apparently it comes in 2 flavors. There's the ground-based thorium, which is what we would get off of Earth, like this. But gas giants can also put this out, and you can build harvesters that can collect it and turn it into gas. And when I say gas, I mean fuel. It's the American term for gas, I guess. It can make it into a fuel. The other thing that thorium is used for is building jump drives. And so that's where the more minerals-like thorium becomes important. So I kind of look at it as one of them is something you can kind of scoop, and the other one is something you have to drill for. But it doesn't distinguish between them. I think it just distinguishes between how you collect them. You have a specific harvester for thorium for gas giants, and that's really the distinction. I think that's really the only distinction. Iridium is used for sensors, also some of your weapons components like fire control. Corundium, this one, it is used for its principal thing that everybody needs it for, building mines. All these things have to be mined. And to build those mines, you need corundium. If you run out of corundium, you cannot build more mines. Bottom line, you're done, which can be problematic. I believe that would also include orbital mining modules, things like that, probably included in there. We can't build those yet to see, but I would think that's in there. Finally, gallicite is used for building engines, so also important, and we will need a collection of that. Okay, so those are your minerals. and what each one is going to do for you. Now what you can kind of see is how many of that mineral is detected on that particular body. Earth has a reasonable number, although the duranium is kind of low. It's very low, actually. Mercury has an incredible duranium source. This is somewhere we might want to colonize so that we can exploit that like crazy. We will want to do that. Now, you'll also notice in a lot of games, this one being one of them, Venus, and when I say games, I mean Aurora games. When you start new, these change on every game. I had a game recently where Venus had nothing on it, which is highly unusual, but it does happen. It confused the heck out of me. But nonetheless, often Venus is mineral rich, like crazy. All these numbers here, 22 million, 21 million, 11 million. Sounds great. Well, it has a huge cost to colonize there. Huge, huge cost. Think of it this way. If one mine produces, on Earth, produces 10 units, okay? It takes 24.49 mines to produce 10 units on Venus. That is my understanding of how that CC number, how it is used. That's what it basically is doing for you. So just know that it's highly difficult to mine things on a planet that has a cost of 24. We will not be touching these resources for a long time. There's another number here that's really important, and it is this decimal number that we see after this. This number is a ranking from, I would assume 0, although technically it would probably be 0.1. 0.1 to 1 of how accessible the minerals are in that location. So Earth, minerals tend to be very accessible, although corbamite is a little low here, but everything is in the 8s and 9s for the most part. There's a couple that aren't. You even have duranium at the 1. Duranium is often pretty exploitable. But on other places like on Luna, they have tritanium. It's a 0.5. So there's a lot of it, but it's more difficult to get. And again, this is a straight multiplier of what the output is. So for something that was a 1, if you're getting 10 units every cycle, for this one you would only get 5 units per cycle. This one you would get 7 units. This one you would get 8 units. Okay, so that's, again, important to know. Luna is easily somewhere we're going to colonize quickly. That'll probably be it will be our very first colony. We're going to start to grab some of these materials. Too bad it doesn't have corundium. We're going to need to find a place that has a good source of that isn't Venus. Mercury is surprisingly good here. I often see Mercury being a lot harder to access. It has extreme temperature. That's why this is the way it is. And that is something that does become a factor, and we'll look at that more in a moment. So this kind of helps you align where you want to build your resources. And as more things are explored, this list gets longer. You want to see bigger numbers and bigger fraction numbers here. You want to see low numbers in CC, although I think in this system, they're all pretty much well-defined based on kind of where they're located in that. To begin with, I don't think there's a lot of drift in the colony cost here. When you go to other systems, this can be dramatically different from system to system, even with systems of the same name. Those are randomly generated entirely. There is a filter on this. That's the other thing that can be a little difficult to understand. This top line here has these zeros and these 10s and these 0.1s and things like that. That's a filter. If I only want to look at duranium sources, it does sort by duranium automatically. Every time you fire this up, duranium is what it will list at the very top, and that's what you get. Let's say we want to see where corundium is located. What I can do is come over here and set it to 1 or to 10 or to 100, whatever I want. That is the minimum amount that it will show. So when I come down here and hit search, we should only see those 3 that have duranium. Venus, Earth, and then this, I'm assuming that's going to be an asteroid. Okay, so that filter will apply until we change it. If we wanted to know what also has corbamite or also has duranium, for example, we could set this to 10, and then it's only going to be, whoops, you don't hit enter though, you hit search. It's only going to be those 2 because Venus didn't have duranium, which is a little unusual. To clear the filter, you hit clear search, and then you search again. and that'll return it. Then some of these buttons do a little bit of that as well. So this max CC, you'll notice it says 10. What this is going to say is my tolerance for how much it costs to do a colony is going to be 10. This is what it set it to by default. If I click this and then search, Venus will disappear because it's more than 10. Okay, it's not disappearing. I thought it was going to disappear. I thought I'd seen it disappear before. I have check. Oh, I think you have to do check CC as well. There it goes. Venus went away. So even if we set that back to 10, it should stay away. And if we set this to 3, we should only see Earth and the moon. Yeah, there we go. If you don't check the CC, it doesn't care. I'm not sure what the max, why it has a max CC check if it doesn't just do that on its own. You can tell it to exclude high gravity worlds. I don't know what search flag does. You can tell it to include gas giants. We don't have any listed yet. There could be some, and they will have sorium. They'll have huge amounts of sorium. Jupiter will have like 90 million sorium. And it's fairly easily accessible, but it's because you have to use an orbitable harvester. You can exclude gas giants. You can only look at the gas giants. You can include asteroids, exclude them, or only look at them. No alien. I haven't run into aliens yet to check that. And we just saw how the check and max CC kind of work. The other one that's here that is actually somewhat important is OM eligible. What's that mean? Well, you can build orbital miners. And if a body is eligible to have an orbital miner where you don't have to physically put mines on it, if we search, there's only 2 of those right now. It has to do with its size. These we could send an orbital station to that has mining equipment on it, and it would mine just as though it was mines on the ground, but we don't have to put any population there. So that's kind of important to know. We'll turn that off and come back here. This is something that we research to get a wider radius of the size of something to be able to mine it. And that becomes kind of important later, and we will see more things add to it as we move through here. Often you will want to find a comet that has a pretty decent orbit that you want to hit. Halley's Comet, one example, I'm not even sure if it's in game, but if it were, it has such an enormously, what's the word? Is it eclectic? Its orbit is eccentric, an eccentric orbit. You don't want to be mining it when it's way out here because you have to send a ship to pick up those resources and bring them back, for instance. But you will find some comets that are really local inside of the Neptunian orbit or just outside of it that stay much closer, that are much more manageable. Okay, I think that's it for this, well, that screen anyway, of resources. Let's look at the other take on these systems, and that is the system window here, open system view. We're going to click that. This is everything that has been surveyed so far. Well, I'm sorry, let me say that differently. This is everything we know of in the system so far. Anything with a U is unsurveyed right now. So as you can see, the majority of things we haven't even looked at yet. We've only done that many. We've only done a handful. Okay. Whoops. I lost I lost USB there for a second. There, it's coming back. And the window here, so this does have a wide view. Let's go ahead and turn that on. I usually prefer that. The information I know to be important right now is colony cost. We've already talked about that a little bit. You can see a few other values in here. You do not get the minerals. This doesn't show you the minerals, but this M here means that there are minerals on that body. That's what those mean. And then there's this number 2 next to Venus. What that means is there's 2 ways to survey for minerals. One is what we're doing now with a ship, a survey ship. The other way is to actually have a ground unit that has equipment to do geo surveys and put that ground unit on the body. When you do that, it can discover resources that weren't visible from the orbital scan, okay? When a body has a number like this, it means it is possible that it has some minerals that weren't identified by the scan. It isn't a certainty, but if we later in the game put a ground unit on there that has the geosurvey equipment, it could eventually find new deposits of minerals on Venus that we didn't know about. Okay, that's the bulk of that. Again, we have the colony cost. We can see what populations are. Once we start colonizing things, that becomes more important. What the terrain looks like, if it has water, the atmosphere. Then you have all the other, nerdy math things like pressure and the temperature. Temperature on Mercury is 468 degrees. On Venus, it's 626. Venus is entirely not, really habitable from any particular point of view. You can do it, but it costs a lot. That's what this factor here is. Max population is kind of important. As you can see, Earth's max population is 12 billion. And I think that's billions, or I don't think that's 12 trillion. Nonetheless, it's a big number, and we're not close to that number yet. If we look at this, it shows us we're at 1.063. Oh no, I'm sorry. So we're at 1 billion. Well, it is in millions. So I'm not actually sure how to count that. I guess it's supposed to indicate 1 trillion. That can't be right. It can't be indicating a trillion. Nonetheless, it's a factor of what the population is. We have 53 million farmers. We have 744 million. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's a billion. I'm off by a factor. I don't know what the heck is wrong with my brain today. So this would be 1 billion is the population on Earth. It's the number we start with. Why it's at that number, I have no idea. So yeah, don't shoot the messenger there. But this would be measured in billions. So 12 billion is the maximum population of Earth. Perihelion, apohelion, those two words. That is the apoapsis, the periapsis of the orbit. So at its closest to the sun, it's 147 million kilometers, and at its farthest, it's 152. And the eccentricity of the orbit, Earth's is actually rather circular. Venus's is much more so. The inclination, that's important as well, but not something we pay close attention to here. How long it takes for it to completely cycle, as you know, Earth is 1 year, and it has plate tectonics. I have no idea if that's important or not. It probably has to do with what minerals are available and things like that. But I really, truly don't know. The important things on this screen, are there minerals on it? That's most important. Is it somewhere I might want to send a ground unit to investigate in the future? That's important. And that's the bulk of it. Populations that might be on the different worlds, which will include our colonies eventually. All right. That is that one. There is one other mining window here to know a little more about the minerals. And this shows what we currently have. And I think if we have multiple colonies, it's still basically showing an overall total. So right now we have a total of 1.1 million minerals, which includes 167,000 uranium, 109,000 neutronium, etc. How accessible they are, this tells us how fast we can mine them, basically. This is the production rate. You'll notice those are going to be entirely scaled. The fives, or is there more than one five? Yeah, 1050, 95, 1095. That's because it's literally just a calculation there. How many years till this mineral is depleted on Earth? So right now we're doing okay, but this doesn't account for if we suddenly build 10 ships like this month. If we set it up to build 10 ships, this will obviously go down because we're going to start using a lot more in those. How many we have stockpiled today? Recent stockpile change. So we've spent 20 uranium recently. I think it's within the last month. Let's see what else. Mass drivers. We don't have any mass drivers built yet. We'll do that eventually. The storage plus the current production level, it's literally just these two numbers added so that you know in a month what you'll have. Projected usage, we're using about 1,000 a month, which is exceeded currently by our production. So the numbers of stockpile will continue to go up. And we can also set a reserve. And I think you double click it to say, I always want to have at least 1,000. So it won't spend below 1,000 once you're done. And you can set those up as you wish as well. I haven't really had to do that yet. This is the usage. So this is kind of what we have and what we're producing. And then this is how many are being used and what they're being used for. What we should see is most of it's construction. Yeah. Tons and tons of construction happening. And then any modifiers. We have 100 manned mines. Those are mines that are literally just run by the population on Earth. There's 100 of those. And there is conventional industry. We've talked about the CI in the past. It shows up on the industry screen, and we're currently converting it all to things like mines. We've got 100 mines now. That makes sense because we started with this number at 600. The construction factories will be wrapping up here relatively quickly, and we'll start spreading some of that around. However, with that said, your industry does not have to be at capacity for the game to remind you that it's not at capacity. So right now we have 20% of our capacity to build stuff isn't doing anything at all. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set a research facility. We're just going to do one. We're going to slowly add a research facility here and there. And you'll see that's going to take a while. Research facilities take a long time to build. It is April of 56. This will be done in July of 57. Now that's at 20%. If we did it, at 100%, obviously it'd be much faster. But that should give you an estimate of how well that works. Currently, from a fuel perspective, we have about 30 million in fuel reserves. That number will continue to climb because we did convert to have some of those. At some point, if we're starting to get concerned about the amount of thorium we're using, we can stop that, and you want to monitor this. It slows down the amount that's being built. It impacts the wealth of the planet because you won't be spending as much each, month in, month out, because you're not running those refineries. And we can see our refineries on the summary screen right here. Fuel refinery 100. Okay. That is a lot of information on this particular screen. What we will continue to do for now is we will continue to survey, we will continue to research, and as we get to new research points where I feel like there's stuff we'll build, that's where I'll start up in the next episode. Until then, thanks for joining me. This is my complete beginner's guide. The game is Aurora 4X. Hope to see you next time. Fair travels.